These are heavy times, aren't they? This last week, we surpassed 100,000 deaths here in the United States as a result of the coronavirus. That means more Americans have died in the last 12 weeks than were killed in the Vietnam War, in the Korean War, and on 9/11 combined. Worldwide, we represent 30% of the deaths from this virus, yet we make up only 5% of the world's population. That's 100,000 Americans that were alive just a few weeks ago. They were fathers and mothers, they were siblings and spouses and grandparents. And many of them were left to die alone. All of this is tearing families apart. You can imagine not being able to adequately grieve and mourn the loss of your loved one because of social distancing restrictions. But that's not all, is it? This week we have been reminded, as a result of yet another unarmed black man being killed by a white police officer, which comes on the heels of another unarmed black man being run down in the streets while on a jog in Georgia. All of it caught on film, forcing us to pay attention and to see how systemic racism is in our country and in our culture, how ingrained it is into our society. In many ways, it is the original sin of our nation. We can even see how present racism is in the pandemic, as over 40% of the hospitalizations as a result of this virus are by people of color. And the mortality rate of a black person is 2.4 times higher than that of a white person. These recent events surrounding Amy Cooper and George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery are just the latest incidents that bring to our attention what our black brothers and sisters have been struggling with, suffering under for decades, for centuries, for generations. And these events have only reinforced the depth of our division and caused even further ripples of pain and suffering. And they've left a lot of us wondering what to do. How do we respond? St. Francis of Assisi once said that in all things, preach the gospel. Preach the gospel at all times, and when absolutely necessary, use words. In other words, our words should be used only to promote social justice and racial reconciliation. But more importantly than our words are our actions. Our actions need to speak much louder than our words. And so, first and foremost, we need to educate ourselves. We need to listen to stories of people of color and to learn how we may have unknowingly played a part in perpetuating the systemic racism that is rampant in our culture and in our country. We need to educate ourselves. We need to listen more and talk less. And secondly, we need to support with our time and with our talents and with our financial resources those organizations that are working for racial reconciliation and justice. And then finally, I want to invite you to join with me in prayer. We believe, don't we, that prayer has the ability to not only change the world, but to also change us. And so I invite you to pray for our nation, pray for our world, for the healing of our world, both in body and mind and in spirit. University Christian Church has a long history of standing beside those on the underside of power, those who have been excluded and oppressed. And I am proud of that history, but we must continue to move forward, to act, to stand beside our brothers and sisters in the midst of their suffering and pain without trying to fix or heal, but to simply stand with them in solidarity. Right now, we have the opportunity to be the church that we claim to be, to transform the world by living out Christ's courageous love. May that be our clarion call. And as we do, may God bless us and keep us. May God's face continue to shine upon us and give us peace, now and forevermore. Amen.